Today my adventure brings me to the oldest town in America. I'm talking about none other than St. Augustine, Florida. Absolutely beautiful town. Love the architecture of this city. Beautiful seaside community. The boats out here on the waterway. We're going to get into some stuff today. We're actually going to walk around town, do a little exploring, and we're going to start off right here, walking around this awesome fort. Learn a little bit about the fort, tell you a little bit about the walls and what makes this fort so cool and interesting and durable. You might be surprised to hear what I'm about to tell you. Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hitch Hiking Yeti here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am feeling the heat today, my friends. It is about 93 degrees, tons of humidity. It's Florida. It's pretty much summertime. It's almost summertime. We are here in early June. Very hot, but you know what? I'm equipped for this kind of heat. I'm from North Carolina. And I spend a lot of my time in the Carolina Beach, Wilmington area. As you know, if you watch this channel for any length of time, we have crazy humidity and heat there throughout our summer months. And I feel like I'm right at home. So we're going to get out here today and we're going to tour the town in this sweltering heat, and we're going to make the best of it. Got a lot of cool stuff to see today. We're going to make our way over to the Flaggler College, which used to be a hotel back in the late 1800s. And I got something cool to show you while we're there. A little bit of Thomas Edison history. Some of his wiring is left behind all these years later. We're going to get to see some wiring that Thomas Edison himself, the great inventor, he worked on this hotel back in the late 1800s. And I'm going to get to show you a little bit of his handiwork, and that excites me very much. All that being said, we got a lot to see. Thank you for hanging out with me. Let's go ahead and get started right here at this awesome looking fort right here over my shoulder. All right, I've made my way over here to the Castillo de San Marcos fort. It's actually built, this old fort was built in 1672. Notice it has a moat that goes around the walls here, which we're going to talk about. These walls, they're kind of important, but this moat right here was not designed to really hold water, even though it can during hurricanes and so on and so forth. But this moat was actually designed to hold livestock back in that time period. So I think that's a really cool little fun fact. So I have made my way over here on the eastern side of the fort, and I want to talk about these walls because these walls are actually made, they're very durable, number one, but they're made from coquina, which is these like mollusk shells that have been crushed and mixed with like different sands and stuff. And I think that is really awesome because of the durability of the walls. As we get closer, you can see the shells in there. Like a lot of these shells that you would find just, you know, walking down the beach, that's what they use to make these walls. And as durable as they are, they're not brittle neither. When they would be at war and you would have cannon fire just raining down on these walls, that coquina would actually absorb the cannonballs. Instead of making it chip and break away and fall and cave and crack and all that type of stuff, it would just kind of absorb, as you see like big divots like this one right up here, you know, in the walls, and several other ones down the way there. So I think that is a pretty cool little fact about this awesome fort here in St. Augustine. What an unbelievably beautiful view from the fort, looking out to the east. Right over here is the Atlantic Ocean and the barrier island here in St. Augustine, the beaches. This is such a beautiful area. And something, I was just speaking to someone that was walking through that happens to have a little bit of knowledge about this fort. They actually live here locally, but they said, notice the wall. This one over here is pretty clean looking. You don't see too many little holes and divots. You see a little bit right there. And then over here on this side, you see a lot of holes and divots. And they said the reason that is because this is where they would have their firing range. If they'd have like captured prisoners and so on and so forth, this is where they would stand the people up against the wall. Right here, just line them up. And then the other dudes with all the weapons would be down here, and they would fire on them. And you know, lay waste to them as they did back in those times. You know, if you was captured, you had sometimes, you know, your fate was a firing range, and right here's where it all happened. And that's why you see so many little holes down this wall side right here, and not as much on the other one. Just look at that. Just think of how many people stood right here and met their fate back all those years ago. All right, so I made my way over here to the far northern side of the fort now, and just to the north of us, you guys see that cross on the horizon there, right? There's like a tree off to the left, a really tall tree, and then, you know, just spiring up into the clouds there, you see a cross. And this is called the Great Cross. This is the oldest still existing Spanish mission. It might be fair to say this is where Christianity started in America. Spanish explorers believed in God, glory, and gold. They wanted to get rich, they wanted to get famous, and spread Christianity. And it might be fair to say right there where that cross is located could be where Christianity first landed here in America. Okay, so welcome. This here is called the Gates. A little bit of history up here about the gates. It said it opened in 1739. It provided the only access through the defense line on the north side of Spanish St. Augustine. So these gates have a lot of history to them. You can tell they're made out of the same materials that the fort was made from. All those mollusk shells and stuff like that. When we get close, you can see all the shells and granulated. That is so freaking fascinating and cool. All right, we're going to make our way down this way because we have, I think, the oldest school in the U.S. is down here somewhere. Let's go see if we can scope it out. Maybe we can find a directory first. Okay, sometimes you ask and you shall receive. St. Augustine directory right here, even dated up here, established in 1565. That is just crazy. So right down here is where we're located, and my plan is we're just going to walk down St. George Street to kick things off and make it way down through here, and then we're going to try to hang out over here and take a quick right when we get down here to Cathedral Place, and I want to go see the Hotel Ponce de Leon. That is a big stop for me today. A lot of cool history there pertaining to one of America's greatest inventors, Thomas Edison. And I found the thing I was looking for. I've been reading about this place right here next to the St. George Street ghost encounters. We have the old schoolhouse. And this ain't just an old schoolhouse. This is the oldest wooden schoolhouse in the USA, right here in St. Augustine, Florida. That is so cool. Something I noticed up there in the top, man. There's actually somebody up there just peeking out at you. Right here is another ice cream location I just walked by, the Sweet Spot. So I've already seen a Kilwins, and now this is called the Sweet Spot Creamery and Confections, ice cream, and so much more. All right here it says Garden 54. This right here is called Ben Soft Pretzels. Man, they have a lot of places to get treats here on this road in this part of town. And then right next door we got Mimi's Famous Crepes. And just to document, for the heck of it, Sweet Savory Waffle Company, Whips. They got another ice cream location right here. Sweet Creams. It says savory waffles plus sweet creams. So my plan to survive this day of crazy heat, same thing I do back home, stick to the shadows and drink plenty of H2O. That's high quality H2O. Check out some of the art that they have just inside these windows. That is some really talented Disney art going on in there. Some Stitch, Mickey Mouse, and even right over here to the left I see my niece's favorite character from the Moana franchise. I see Hey, that crazy old bug-eyed chicken. Bit of a funny story. Yesterday evening when we first got into town, we actually walked down here and we walked in that store and was looking at all the artwork. My wife was really interested in, like, oh, I love that. That would look so good on the wall. And I got there and I started talking to the lady and I found out the price, and I thought, yeah, that is way out of my budget. It was like $2,000 for the small ones and about $3,000 for the bigger ones. So I was like, yeah, that's way out of our budget. I am really loving the looks of that water fountain right now. That looks like that would be so refreshing to just go over there and just lay my body down in it right here in this park. But this is such a beautiful area, well manicured, beautiful green grass, lovely trees, loving the trees. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you look right next door to this little area that I'm at, you see a sign right across the way there. It's called Flaggler College. And that's where we're headed to next, because I think that is one of the most awesome structures here in this town. It has a lot of cool history. So let's walk over there and check it out. All right, I made my way over here to the Flaggler College. And this is a statue of Henry Flagler right out front. Let's go ahead and walk inside, but just want to show you some of the detail. This man spared no expense when building things. Look at that design. That is amazing. That is so beautiful. This big magnificent gate. It's almost like you're entering a castle, not a college. I mean, when you walk in here and you just look around in this courtyard, the spires, it just feels so like old England type of a vibe to it. It's just beautiful. I want to give you a little bit of backstory on the Flaggler College. So it is a liberal arts school. It is a private school. And before it was a college, though, the structure was built by Henry Flagler in 1885. It was Hotel Ponce de Leon, named after the famous Spanish explorer. Henry was an industrial tycoon, co-founder of Standard Oil. Him and a man by the name of John D. Rockefeller, who you might have heard of his name before, founded Standard Oil. He helped invent tourism to Florida, and then they turned the hotel into a college in the 1960s. All right, so now I've made my way onto the inside of the Flaggler College. Just look at all the artwork. Look at the ceiling. Is that not phenomenal? It almost has that look of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. when you look up in the very top. That is so beautiful. That dome, that is so pretty. The golds, the woodwork. Very, very awesome. So beautiful. So this is something that I did not notice yesterday when me and my wife walked down here. They actually have this display case right here, and it's just got a bunch of old retro Pepsi cans. It got 7-Up, Mountain Dew, even Busch beer. How crazy is that? Look at that cool old 1980s, maybe late 70s Mountain Dew can right there. You don't see that every day. Can't believe I'm seeing it in a historic place like this. So yesterday when I walked in here, I was lucky enough to come across a gentleman that worked here that gave me a little private tour up these steps right here in front of us. And when we walked up those steps all the way back to the right, he showed me some wiring that Thomas Edison did on this building way back, and I'm going to plug that footage in right now. It is pretty awesome just to know Thomas Edison actually did some wiring in this old building, and it's still there to this very day.
Had page people in the back, and they'd come out to whatever family it was.
Right.
But yeah, this is the original wires.
Oh my God, that is so awesome.
Yep, that's the real deal.
And Thomas Edison actually.
That's his work.
That is his work.
That is his work. Yeah.
That is so cool.
And the DC power, because it was generated with DC power.
Right.
So if you go out this back towards the courtyard,
yeah,
you see the big smokestack. That was where the generator was attached,
right.
and that generator is actually in the Smithsonian Institute in DC.
Cool. All right, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So first of all, I just would like to thank that gentleman who took me up there and showed me the wiring work that Thomas Edison himself did here at the Flaggler College. That was just so epic to know how old that was, and a pure genius of American inventor like, Thomas Edison actually touched that. That is so freaking cool. So there's one more thing I want to show you before we leave, because there's a lot of tile work here on the grounds here in this atrium area for this college or / hotel. Supposedly Thomas Flagler's face is on one of the tiles, and this is a long stretch, but a lot of people have fun with it, and I think I know where it is, so let's go check it out. Okay, so when you come in the entrance, this is the front entrance in, you're going to look off to your left, my right, and you'll see this round area right here, and it says Flaggler College going in that direction. So supposedly, if we come right over here and we get down low enough, right there is Thomas Flagler's face. Now, this is all speculation, but it's just something kind of fun and neat, little fun fact that you can look at and check out and kind of have a chuckle. Probably really ain't him at all, but nonetheless, it is kind of a cool little thing to look for when you come in here. All right, so that will do it for the Flaggler College. It's time to move on. Wanted to fill you in on one more little piece of history about this place. I just talked to somebody and they said, hey, did you get all you want? They see me on my camera. And I said, yeah. I said, I went in there and they showed me where Thomas Edison actually done some wire work in there. And he said, hey, here's a fun fact. He said, this building, this college or hotel back in that time was the first structure or building in the US that had like electricity running throughout in 1886. Not even the White House where the president sleeps had power before the Flaggler College / hotel. So I thought that was really, really awesome. That was so cool, man. You know, sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time. One of those trams just went by giving information about the town, and he said, up here on the right, you're going to look at the oldest street in the United States, Aville Street. So right here you go. I didn't even know that until right now, Aville Street. This right here is the oldest street in the United States. Right there it is, 8-foot clearance. So if you got some jacked up vehicle, you might not want to drive down through here. I don't know. I don't even know if UPS can drive down the oldest street in the United States, but yeah, man, this is pretty cool. And you know what I like about it? It's got history and it's got shade, and that is awesome because I'm loving it. All right, I made my way down several blocks down here to the corner of Charlotte Street and St. Francis Street. And this right here is the oldest house in the US. Right here, this is actually a trolley stop regular if you do their trolley tour, which a lot of people do here in town. This is pretty cool, but they actually have it right here, Old Town Trolley Tours. They actually stop right here and give you a little information. You can also buy a ticket. Oldest House Museums and Gardens, open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. But man, look at the bricks. Everything here is very withered looking at the oldest house, which it should be. You know, it's the charm and all that stuff. It sells itself. That is so cool. Okay, so I was just showing you the front of the oldest house, these bricks. Maybe that is not just the oldest house. Maybe all this is considered the oldest house, because when you walk down just a little bit further, you have this signage and it says the oldest house, and it even has a plaque right here. So I'm thinking maybe it's all connected. The oldest house would have been probably pretty large, but right here it is. And it was actually burned in 1702 and then rebuilt, and it's been occupied ever since. I gotta say one thing, walking down some of these little streets gives me those Germany vibes. Me and my wife was in Germany last summer over there, and when you're in those little German towns, this is what it reminds me of, how small the streets are in these little back alleys. This reminds me of it so much. Now the architecture itself of the homes are way different, except that one. That almost looks like a little German house right there. That a lot of German vibes, or like a whole European thing going on walking down these streets. Just the layout, the lay of the land, if you will. All right, I have pretty much finished my tour today. I'm going out in style with a little Killins. I just got some vanilla ice cream, a small cup of vanilla ice cream to cool me off. Oh man, that's so freaking good. And a bottle of water to wash it down with before my walk back to my hotel. I really had a great time here today in St. Augustine. It was bloody hot, but I survived. Man, that's good. All that being said, friends, thank you so much for watching me and hanging out with me today. Hope you enjoyed some of the things I showed you in this vlog. I know I learned a lot. Hope you learned a little bit. Until next time, I'm the Hitchhiking Yeti, and I will see you in my next adventure. And it might still be hot because I'm going to be in Florida for a few days, so you just never know. Y'all stay safe, and I hope to see you all again soon. Y'all have a blessed one.